Okay, so last time we talked in the last slide, you talked about types of neurons. Um, Now we're going to actually talk about your peripheral nervous system. But before we do that, let's just review really quick. And if you actually just pop your notes back to the very similar looking picture that was back here, I just want to kind of remind you your sense organs are sending sensory data to your peripheral nervous system. So your peripheral nervous system is essentially the peripheral. It's all the outside parts that are sending information in. So that is the afferent system is going in, peripheral to the nervous system, to the brain. At that point, your brain has to make some decisions, like is it going to respond to something? So if, for example, you have been shivering, right? Your central nervous system is going to send a message back to your peripheral nervous system, and then it's going to send it to the motor or efferent. So this just means that efferent means it's going out. So afferent is in, efferent is out. And if you're looking for a way to remember which way, A alphabetically goes in and E comes out. So first of all, let's just talk about the motor system can actually run your somatic system, and this is everything that you do that you choose to do. So, in fact, it's all of the like picking up your pencil and taking notes. If your central nervous system, if your sensory data went in saying, hey, I'm kind of cold, then it sends a message to the peripheral nervous system, to the motor system, to the somatic, to, hey, go put your coat on. So then you physically will put your coat on. Those are decisions that you make voluntarily, you choose to do. But you have lots of systems who just run themselves, and we call these the autonomic or involuntary system. So the next two things we're going to talk about are specifically autonomic. We don't worry about them, and it's a good thing, they just run themselves. And the first one is called parasympathetic. And this is actually going to result, it's actually acetylcholine that gets released that actually stimulates the cells to do this. And so it actually specifically targets one set of neurons that respond to that particular chemical. And so it should say that this is our resting and digestion. So the parasympathetic runs the D rule, which is for resting and digestion. So defecation being to poop, then you actually have to digest things, and diuresis. So diuresis is the word we use for peeing, for example. And remember, if you get dialysis, that means that your kidneys aren't really working, and so you have to have your blood cleaned, and that's what dialysis is for. So the D rule is all of the things that, generally speaking, run through the parasympathetic system. And so the release of acetylcholine is actually what is going, so that particular chemical is what sets off those specific nerves, which is different than the sympathetic system, which is using epinephrine or adrenaline. That is the other one. And so typically it's going to cause an increase in your heart rate. So think of the last time one of your friends jumped out to scare you. And you get a sudden increase in your heart rate because you might have an emergency. So adrenaline makes your heart go faster, makes your blood pressure increase, and it causes your liver to start dumping glucose into your system so that you have enough energy to actually take care of yourself. That is the goal of it. Okay, so the other thing it runs is what we call the E rule. And the E rule is that it's everything related to exercise, excitement, emergency, any kind of emergencies, embarrassment. And interestingly enough, you get basically the same response anytime that you're embarrassed as you would in an emergency. It actually hormonally is as if you were under stress. So embarrassment causes basically the same reaction that an emergency would cause. Okay, so you do need to know this. A parasympathetic system runs basically your resting and digestion, and your sympathetic system runs all of the things if you need to get moving faster. Okay, so again, your central nervous system sends a signal to the peripheral nervous system, to the motor system, and then the motor system runs these things automatically. You don't make any decisions about them, they simply happen. Okay, you have to run the somatic system, you have to choose to get up and move and do things like that.